تبارك الله رب العالمين.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله الذي جعل ذكره طمأنينة للقلوب وجلاء لها عن رين الذنوب ومطردة لوسواس الخناس المكذوب، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد الداعي إلى كل فعل محبوب وأمر مطلوب، وعلى آله وأصحابه المقتفين سبيله على خير أسلوب. أما بعد، فيقول رب تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المنزل: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا، حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها، وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا، حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. صدق الله العظيم. Alhamdulillah, last week we concluded the 40th session of our series on building khushu in salah, building concentration, attention, and focus in our salah. And in that, I reminded you of the objective. And the objective was to turn our hearts towards Allah in salah and leave it turned to facing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the completion of salah. Just as when we are in salah and our hearts are turned elsewhere in the world, thinking about what we need to do for our family and for our jobs, and our mind and heart is roaming in all different directions, so it is possible that our hearts can be focused on Allah while our hands and feet and our actions are in the dunya, or in the world, occupied with our worldly activity, but maintaining our focus on Allah. And this is exactly what we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying to us in the Quran: وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. Remember your Lord, remember the name of Allah, remember the name of the one who created you. Remind yourself of Allah. وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. At-tabattul means to cut off from all other occupations, from all. In fact, it is used for asceticism, the activity of going into becoming a monk. This is why tabattul is usually used for that. But in this particular instance, it means the mental tabattul, the mental asceticism, the one where it is turned away from everything else. Tabattul in Arabic, the definition is al-inqita' ila al-ibadati, which is to devote yourself entirely, to cut off yourself from everything else and devote yourself for ibadah. And this is why Maryam alayhi salam is known as Maryam al-Batul, the one who cut herself off from men and from everything else. She went and she stayed in an isolated area. And we have the name of talaq, al-talaq al-battata, which means that it can never happen, it can never be reconciled again. But in this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is drawing our attention that He wants us to turn our focus, our heart to Him in salah, and in the turning out, in the exit of salah, the heart should remain focused on Allah. That's the objective. And that is what khushu is. Because if you want to seek Allah's benefit, Allah's protection, Allah's help in the world, in your worldly actions, then it is through salah where you have built your connection such that your salah, your connection with Allah is maintained, that then when you go out, your Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's focus of rahmah and His mercy and His help is to you. For Allah says, وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ, seek help in patience and in salah, and وَإِنَّهَا لَكَبِيرَةٌ, but it is big, it is great, it is lofty, it's a high task. إِلَّا عَلَى الْخَاشِعِينَ, except the ones who have this quality of khushu. And this is what this series was about, building khushu such that you remain focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout your the periods between salah, so that by the time you come back for the charge, the second charge, 5 times a day you are charged and reminded that you have to face Allah, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can help. He is the one who will solve your problems. He is the one who is giving you everything you have, who has given you life, and it is in front of Him you will have to stand and account for everything you have done in this world. All these favors He has given you, you have to stand in front of Him and give account. So that was the objective. The objective was that because لا يقبل الله من عبده عملا حتى يشهد قلبه مع بدنه. In the hadith mursal, that Allah will not accept an action unless the of a believer, of His servant, حتى يشهد قلبه, until his heart bears witness. Your heart has to be in it. When you do things, we should not be satisfied with it just being ritual and routine. The salah was intended to have that depth, to have that focus, so that when we leave salah, our heart remains focused. رَجُلٌ قَلْبُهُ مُعَلَّقٌ بِالْمَسْجِدِ, a person whose heart is connected to the masjid, who is attached to the masjid. In other words, why would you be attached to the masjid? Not to meet your friends and not to socialize, but the attachment to masjid is the attachments to sajda. And the attachment to sajda is to know, because masjid is derived from the word sajda. The attachment to sajda is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closest to the believer when he is in sajda, when he is in prostration. That is the attachment you want in your life. Now today, it's half term and there are young people here, and I thought that it would be appropriate to address something that would be of interest to parents in relation to young people and to young people in general as well. Because we live in a society where instructions and guidance on parental responsibilities are confusing, to say the least. And then this is not because it is a particular society. Every society has its good and bad. We have bad people and good people in every society. In every nation you find bad and good practices. And there are lots of things that are good in this society, and there are lots of things that are bad. So one of the things that we have found that is pernicious and dangerous in the society is that there is a tendency for people growing up, children especially, and sometimes even adults, to seek the solutions to their problem and the explanations and understanding of their problems as being caused by the way their parents treated them when they were children. And this is a problem that stems from a historic approach to psychoanalysis, which is because we live in a time now where people, in the olden days, people used to go to the wise people and the people who believed in God. Now the new churches are the psychoanalysts and the people who are providing therapy. And a large part of that system is based on a theory that if you understand what your parents have done to you, then that will relieve you from your stress, that will relieve your psychological illnesses. And that whole idea comes from an individual called Freud, and many of you might have heard of him. He's one of the most influential psychologists in the 20th century. If I say to you that something was Einsteinian, you will not understand what I mean. But if I say it was Freudian, you will understand straight away what I'm talking about. Now, because of his theory, his idea was that every child wants to kill his father. That was his idea, that naturally you want to kill your father. So, and you have jealousy towards your father, and likewise, girls have the same level of angst and anger towards their parents, and this are hidden and needs to be brought out. So when they go for therapy, when you go for therapy, you're told that, look, if you cannot remember any of the mistreatment of your parents, then that is because you've buried it so far in your memory that you've buried it so far that you can't even remember it, so you need to think about it. And this is known as repression. You have repressed it, you have pushed it so far. And then eventually people start to imagine things. You start to hallucinate. You begin to imagine and then produce things against your parents. Now, why is this important and what's the relevance? You see, when Shaytan realized that Allah was creating his the creation in the best of mold, Adam alayhi salam, he became very jealous. And the jealousy led him to disobedience to Allah and led him to be casted out. And once this happened, he declared enmity towards Adam alayhi salam, who is our forefather, and the entire generation, all the children of Adam. He saw them all as an enemy. These are the children of Adam would be his enemy, and he was going to take them to Jahannam. This is his plan. And he said to Allah, فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, that because you have led me astray, لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. He said, you have allowed me to go astray, so then I will sit in ambush. I will sit in ambush, and I will attack them. I will sit in an ambush on صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ, on your straight path. لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ, I will attack them from in front. لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ. I will attack them from in front and behind and on the right and on the left. وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And you will not find most of them, the majority of them, you will find them ungrateful. So gratitude is at the heart of this plan of Shaytan. He wants you to become ungrateful because ungratefulness leads to destruction in the world and in the akhirah, both. So what he does is that he sets traps for taking you out of your protections. And the first protection a child has is his parents. The parents become so dedicated to the child, well, once the child is born. If you ask anybody the relationship between any person, no matter how dedicated and how loving and how caring a friend is to you, it will never reach the level that your parents have for you, because that friend will never allow his own life to be taken to save yours. But a parent will always do that. And the test of this is that if there is a lifeboat, you're in a ship and the ship is sinking, and in the lifeboat there is only one seat, and there's a parent and a child, a mother and her child, or a father and his son or his daughter, who do you think will get the seat on the lifeboat? The father or the child? The child. The father will always say, save my child. He will never allow his life to be prioritized over that of the child. And why is that? Why is that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in the heart of the child, of the father and the mother, a special love, a special mercy. And this mercy is the one that we share, that anzala fi dunya, that Allah, the inna lillahi miyatu rahmatin, that Allah has, his limit is 100. He's used the word 100, but it's limitless. His mercy covers everything. Wasi'at rahmati kulla shay. My mercy has covered everything. But he has caused to descend into this world one rahmah. One rahmah. He said, anzala fi dunya rahmatan wahida. One of his mercies, his compassion, his love. بين الجن والإنس والبهائم والهوام. He's shared this among all the creatures. And فَبِهَا يَتَعَاطَفُونَ. With that mercy, do they show compassion to each other. حتى تعطف الوحش على ولدها, that the wild beast, so much so, this is so powerful, this mercy, that one mercy that we share with all the mothers and the fathers of insects and animals and jinn and every living creature. You will see compassion. The fiercest creature in the world, the wild beast, and this is what the hadith says, al-wahsh, the wild beast that eats and devours and crushes things, that becomes a compassionate being. ترفع الدابة حافرها, that it raises its hoof not to crush, so as not to crush, and it becomes compassionate. Why? Because of that mercy that Allah places in the heart of the parent. And then that parent becomes completely devoted to the child. So much so that were it to come to the decision of whose life is more important, the parents will always say, save my child, but take my life. Always. And this is the power of that mercy, because it is Allah's mercy. It is Allah's love that is finding expression in the heart of the parent. So, when Allah captures the heart of the parent to such a degree and makes it dedicated to you, what happens when you turn around and be ungrateful? What is the consequence of that? And this is what Shaytan knows. Shaytan has a plan. And the plan of Shaytan is to take you out of the mercy of Allah, to take you out of the protection of Allah, to take you away from the pleasure of Allah to the anger of Allah. This is his plan, because this is what happened to him. So he said, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ, that you will find most of them ungrateful. This is my plan. I'm going to come to them all around. And you know what a hunter does? Hunting, there is different types of hunting. You know, when you scout, and then you flush out people, you take them out, you flush, you scare animals, and you take them out of their safe zones, so that you can then attack them. And this is exactly what Shaytan does. So he's saying that I will attack them so that you will not find them grateful, because this mercy is such that it requires it is such a dedication. The parent becomes so dedicated that life turns upside down on the arrival of a child. If you remember, when you had your child, what happened? In the first 2 years, you know, when animals are born, they walk after 4 hours. They get up and eat and drink, and they're fine. But a human baby, for 2 years, all it does is scream and cries and wants food and wants to be taken care of. You cannot sleep. And in fact, this love is so powerful in the heart of the parent that even when they're asleep, they are conscious of the child. Because parents do not roll over and crush their children in the bed. Do you know that? Why do they not do that? When you're asleep, you should roll over and easily crush the baby. But they have found, psychologists have studied this, and the only time this happens is when the parent is under the influence of alcohol. When they're drunk, they do this. But even when they're asleep, Allah has made this love in their heart so powerful that they are conscious of the child throughout their life, throughout their living life, that this now is a lifelong task, that my child, and it's done because of the mercy of Allah, that special power, controlling power that Allah puts in the heart. And for that to happen, the heart has to be turned out. All the defenses of the heart has to go. It cannot have hard, crusted areas to defense against the child. Every coup of the child is an alarm in the heart. It goes straight in the heart. You know, when the parent is asleep and the child makes a tiny coo, the parent jumps up as if they were never asleep, because it's attuned. Everything is, your ears is attuned to the sound of the child, and you are watching every sound that comes out. For 2 years, you are completely at their service. You're doing this until they can get up and walk and eat. And this is the verse I read to you here, where Allah is saying that the mother brings the child into the world with great difficulty. And she gives birth to him with great difficulty. وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ, and taking care of him is 30 months, the 30 months including the 9 months of pregnancy. And this is an extensive level of dedication that surpasses every other thing. In fact, even people who do not accept this narrative of Adam alayhi salam, even Darwin had to accept this, that the power of parental love is the most powerful force in nature. That there is no instinct in nature that is as strong as this. Even Darwin had to admit this. This is what he said. So those of you who think that they've found reasons and they couldn't explain it. But there is a responsibility that comes with this. When you have a heart that is turned out to you and that is constantly there to take care of you, if you become prickly, if your words, the words that they're listening to, every need I have to fulfill of my child, and if that child starts to become prickly in their voice, starts to become harsh in their voice, that heart gets damaged. It gets hurt like that, like touching of cotton wool. It is so soft. It feels like a dagger in the heart when the voice of the child becomes harsh. When you're at work and people speak harsh to you, your defenses are up because it doesn't matter. Maybe he didn't have a good day or something. Maybe he's speaking harsh. But when your own child speaks harsh to you, what happens? It feels like daggers spearing in the heart because Allah turns the heart out to the child for the protection and for dedication and service towards the child. So what does Allah do to protect the heart of the parent? What did Allah say? He said, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا uff. Do not even say uff to them. Uff. Do not even say uff. Because He has made this captive. And if we fall, la samahallah, if we fall into the trap of blaming our parents as we tend to do now in the modern psychoanalytic methods of looking of analyzing where we are and what we are doing and psychoanalyzing our worries and concerns and our mental illness. If we accept this, then what is the consequences? What actually happens if you do not recognize this? That Allah is saying, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا uff. Do not say uff. Because of the level, because of the state of this heart, that He is made captive to serve you for 2 whole years, there's service to you. Why? What is the tragedy? What is it that Shaytan knew when he said, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ, that you will not find most of them grateful? What is it? What is the consequence of you blaming your parents or saying something harsh to your parents? What is the problem? This is known in Arabic as uquq. Uququl walidain. That they are, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ala ukhbirukum bi akbaril kaba'ir. There are normal sins, and then there are grave sins, and then there are the grave of the gravest sins, the worst of the worst sins. So he says, ala ukhbirukum bi akbaril kaba'ir, the gravest of the grave sins. And of that, what did he say? Among them there were 3. Al-ishraku billah, ascribing partners to Allah. Uququl walidain was number 2. Doing disobedience or hurting the parents. Actually, the word aqqa ya'uqqu means to shred. Shaqqa yashukku. So it means that if you are shredding the hearts of your parents, that is of your indulging in the akbarul kaba'ir, the biggest of the biggest sins. And the third one was shahadatul zur, saying lies, which inshallah, if you come next week, I will tell you what happens to your brain when you enter adolescence, the teenage years, and what actually happens and why you should be more careful, because it mentions this in the ayah that I read to you. Is it half term next week as well? Yes. So bring your children next week, inshallah. We'll talk about what happens to the brain in adolescence and why you need to be particularly careful. إذا بلغ أشده, this adolescent period is a very delicate time, and we need to train our parents to understand our youngsters, understand our teenagers, and to train the teenagers also to understand what's happening in the brain, what sort of brain changes are going on, because you go through severe changes are happening, and because of that you may end up acting in ways and not realizing that you are fulfilling the plan of Shaytan that he has. He wants you to become ungrateful. And why does he do this? Here is the hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that كل الذنوب يؤخر الله ما شاء منها إلى يوم القيامة. That all of the sins of Bani Adam, when we commit a sin, all of it, that Allah delays the punishment for it of anyone he wants of what you commit, all your sins, to Yawm al-Akhirah, on the day for the next life. Illa, except one sin. And what is that sin? Illa uququl walidain, except the shredding of the heart of the parents, attacking the heart of the parent. إلا أقوق الوالدين فإن الله تعالى يجعله لصاحبه في الحياة قبل الممات. That Allah brings forth the tragedy, the punishment, the consequence of the shredding of the heart of the parents, the reward for that, the punishment for it in this world. It starts in this world. And we see this over and over, where a person treats their parents in a certain way, and then we find that their children are doing the same to them. There was this famous story about a man who was taking his father up the hill, and the father started laughing because he wanted to kill him. He wanted to throw him off the cliff. And he said to his father, "Why are you laughing? You don't know what I'm about to do to you." He said, "I know exactly what you're about to do to me, because this is exactly what I did to my own father." Yes. This is exactly what I did. So, يُعَجِّلُ اللَّهُ لِصَاحِبِهِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ, in this world, قَبْلَ الْمَمَاتِ, before death. And that is the tragedy that Shaytan wants to enact, wants it to happen to all the children of Adam, so he can take them. ثُمَّ لَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ, you will not find them grateful. So, in conclusion, what you have to recognize is that, yes, there are challenges, but these challenges have to be understood in the light of the dedication that Allah puts in the heart of the parent. And gratitude for that is required, because if you're not grateful to your parents, if you do not show gratitude, then you are fulfilling whose plan? Shaytan. And this is what he said. He said that he will come and he will do this. He is the biggest hunter in the world. He's been hunting since Adam alayhi salam, and he knows how to get you out of your protection of your parents. Your parents are once good for you, they want to protect you, and Allah wants good for you, and Allah wants to protect you. But if we choose to follow the plan of Shaytan, then who can help us? May Allah help us all. Wa jazakumullahu khaira. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
تبارك الله